It is 7:01, so we'll get started. We'll call the town council meeting of April 23rd, 2025 to order. Jennifer, will you take roll?
Councilmember Alberish.
Here.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Gold. Councilmember Wall. Mayor Domkowski.
Here. Councilmember Abarish, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag, of the United States of America, to the republic, which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Hey. Thank you. With that, let's open public comment. So persons wishing to address the council on any matter not on the posted agenda are invited to do so. Please note, however, that the council is not able to undertake extended discussions or to act on non-advertised items. Such items can be referred to staff for appropriate action, which may include placement on a future agenda. Is there anyone here to comment on any item that is not on our agenda tonight? Mr. Talber.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So I came here because I wanted to thank Kevin Bryant, and I tried to do it in private, but it was not satisfying. And it wasn't satisfying because it went something like this. I first thanked him because I thought his door was always open for me and only for me, but I learned that his door is always open for everybody. And then when I pivoted from that and I said, God, every time I had an idea, you encouraged me to go. You must have really believed in me. I learned that Kevin actually says that to everyone in his staff or in the city, in the town. So
90%.
so 90% is close enough when you have 4,500 folks that live here. So I left very not feeling satisfied. So I did not want to have any regrets. We have 4 meetings left in which he will sit in that chair. And after that, he's assured me that he never wants to sit on that chair again. So 3 layers to my thanks. First of all, in an era where people really doubt government and the power of government, I think Kevin has proved to me that local government does work. I live in a community with approximately 73 homes, and this is what we've accomplished in Kevin's tenure. We did not have any ingress and access to our community. We only had one way to get in. With Kevin, the town helped us build 2 gates so that we had 3 ways to come in and out, especially in cases of fire. There weren't any gimmies. I mean, the town helped us with the permits. The town paid for the physical gates, but Kevin made sure that we paid for electricity, for all the electrical, for all the machinery, and for all the maintenance. We tried to resolve the Cal Water tank issue. We lost that one, but we've needed our roads paved. We worked through that. We have a lot of drainage issues there. He's always helped us with that. So anything that our community needed, I always felt like I could come to Kevin and we could work something out. That's the first layer. The second layer is, just give me one sec here. The second layer to me is, it's funny because, well, we accomplished a lot. It's interesting when you work with somebody because you get to learn from them. And I think one of the ways that Kevin impacted me the most is I have things that I want to work on. And one of the things that I want to work on is I want to be less reactive and I want to be I want to be more responsive. And it was always amazing to me to see how many people, we live in a town where we have thousands of personalities. Everybody brings their baggage to a discussion. And they usually personalize that discussion by looking at Kevin and assuming the worst of Kevin and the worst of the town. And Kevin always patiently listened. And I remember I took those colors initially because everybody in my neighborhood took those colors. So it was easy for me to role model what they were doing. And one day I decided to do something different. And I went to Kevin's office and I just took a different approach. And something that I always admired of Kevin that I hope to do more is to be less reactive. We all get triggered by things. To be more responsive, to listen as well as he does. So I think the true measure of a person is not what you're able to do in your town and the work that you're able to accomplish, but how they impacted you as a human and how you saw qualities in them that you want to have and you feel make you better. So that's the second way that Kevin impacted me. I struggled with how to say thank you. And for all of those that have spent time on Kevin's couches, we know that the easy culprits are, I can do something about Maine, because we always remember on his desk, on that wall by his desk, there's the Maine poster. He comes from Maine. I couldn't find anything that was meaningful to do with Maine. Then I still remember the Japanese painting on the right, on that big wall, and I'm like, I could do something in Japanese. That didn't feel right. And the best idea that I almost did is, I know that it's going to mean something to him if I do something that regards the Beatles. And the closest came to buying an old Beatles album and saying something, an inscription on the bottom, something like, you created the perfect band in your tenure in the town. I didn't want to do that because I felt like the most meaningful thing I could do for someone who's impacted me and who really role modeled me serving in this town was just to say, Kevin, can you give me your personal email, and can I take you out to lunch to Alice's after you retire every 6 to 9 months? I'd love to learn what life in Hawaii is when you can kick your daughter off the house that you wanna spend time with there. I'd love to know how learning Japanese is going. He's always going to be in Redwood City, and his dream is to actually work at a restaurant in Maine so he can spend time with his mom. I try to get the folks at Alice's to kind of agree to take him on as a project so that he can, when he goes to Maine, he can hit the ground running, but he didn't accept. But I just wanted to say, Kevin, thank you. I shared with you what you did for me and what you've done for this community in private, but I felt like it would have been a regret if I didn't use one of the last 4 meetings to come and share with you easy pickings, what we accomplished together, but really the story of how you impacted me. You're a role model for a public servant, and you've been one of the people that has allowed me to feel like this is my slice of heaven. So thank you.
Very good.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Tauber, for those thoughtful words of gratitude. And I hope you and everyone else is available to join us on May 9th for a community celebration in honor of Kevin's contributions and lasting legacy to the town. Are there any other public comments to be made tonight? And I see nothing in the Zoom, so we will close public comment. And tonight is a night of gratitude, clearly, because first up on the agenda is an award for one of our very own. And here to present that award, we welcome Trails Committee Chair Barry Cool to present a Trail Appreciation Award to our former town engineer, Sean Rose. Barry, welcome.
Anything left to say after
Well, I
that?
just
Anyway, Mayor Brian, thank you, council members. Thank you all for the time to be here tonight. I'm sure you know, but I'd like to repeat. I have served on Trails Committee as its chair for the past 3 years. The charter of the Trails Committee is threefold. Okay, so we are try to be very aware of trail condition. We're looking for safety issues and maintenance issues. We work through Yaz and his staff for those kinds of things. Secondly, we are also looking ahead to try to expand the trails network, improve the trails network in any way that we can. And thirdly, we work with SAGE and the planning group when there's an application before the city, say for a major subdevelopment, like we have a couple of those on Kenyatta Road currently and so forth. Or there is a major construction project like the build of an ADU or some kind of a major remodel. If there are trails issues or potential trails issues involved, we review those with planning, and they've been very good to us bringing that in. So the whole idea is to support the trail system that we have. Now, I'm sure that trails is not probably the top priority on the council's minds. You have quite a bit of other things with, housing element compliance and general business conditions and those sorts of things and budgets and so forth. But I'd like to kind of commend our Trails Committee folks. Many have been on there for 8, 10, 15, 20 years or so. We're all trails users of some kind, and we appreciate and love the trails, and we love what they do for Woodside in enhancing the rural nature of the community. So that brings me to why I'm here tonight. Trails Committee has an award that we present. This is not an annual thing. This is something that when an individual has been deemed to be a contributor, major contributor over a period of time, who has as much enthusiasm for trails as our committee members do, and has helped to clear roadblocks and just do what our charter says we're supposed to do, we like to honor that person. And the Trails Appreciation Award does that. Okay, like I said, it's not an annual award. It's an award that's given out only when we deem someone worthy of that. I think the previous one of these was probably awarded something like a decade ago. So that speaks well for any of the recipients. And the award this time, as you already introduced, goes to Sean. That's okay. That part wasn't a surprise. He's sitting right here. Anyway, I'd like to present the Trails Appreciation Award to Sean Rose.
Good.
So you don't get this yet. I get to talk about it first, and then I give it to you. So I want to show this around. This is a cartograph of a historic version of Woodside. I don't know if it's a little distant for you to see. There used to be one of these in Town Hall. Maybe there is, or maybe that one is in my hand right now. Who knows? But it used to be in Town Hall. And like I said, it's a historic depiction. History fascinates me, and the history of Woodside fascinates me, and where we've come from the late 1840s. I mean, Woodside was one of those communities where there were people before California was even a state. And this cartograph reflects some of that. It's got Dr. Tripp's Woodside store noted on it. It's got the first sawmill. It's got the Dennis Martin location. Shows some of the logging trails that are now Woodside Road and other things. It's just a fascinating piece of art. And before I hand this over to Sean, I'd like to read something on the bottom to you. There's also no Interstate 280, which is kind of refreshing to see too. On the bottom here, it says, a cartograph of Woodside, California, a picturesque, oh, I can't read this. Here, hold on. Thank you. Good for something. That's okay. That's okay. A picturesque rural area, rich in history and legend, where extensive estates with landscape formal gardens adjoin a wooded area as wild as when white man first looked upon it. I think that speaks a lot for Woodside and why we on the Trails Committee and all of us in here love this place so much. Sean, thanks for everything you've done for the Trails Committee and for the town. Appreciate it. Trails Appreciation Award.
Nicely done.
Thank you all. I really appreciate being back here. It's a lot of memories being back at the town of Woodside. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't feel lucky having worked here. I think I said that when I left, and I still feel that way. So it's good to see all of you again. And I loved working with the Trails Committee all those years. It was really one of my favorite things that I did at the town. Getting in the trenches with you and identifying projects and making them happen was really a highlight of my career. So thank you so much for this. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And yeah, congratulations, Sean, on a well-deserved award for your exemplary work on behalf of the town of Woodside. Thank you. It's great to see you again.
Home looks so good and so rested and so.
Don't believe that. It's
Okay,
okay.
and tonight really is the the Golden Globes, I should say, of Woodside. We've got one more award to make, and it's the presentation of an honor coin to Vicky Coe. And Vicky and her beautiful family are here tonight. And we're here to recognize her outstanding commitments to the town of Woodside over the last 4 decades, literally 40 years this month. So as I was typing Vicky's name into my Outlook, and this is a true story, I was typing her last name, and the machine thought I was trying to spell the word coefficient. And I thought, how appropriate. In physics, a coefficient is a multiplier. And in mathematics, it's a constant quantity that multiplies a variable. And in our community, Vicky Coe is a force multiplier with her work artistically, culturally, and on behalf of the the community's safety and security. She not only has had a significant impact through her own leadership, but she has catalyzed broader involvement and an impact through her efforts and brought greater enjoyment, engagement, and collaboration on behalf of the town. So it is my great honor tonight to be able to award Vicky a Woodside Honor Coin, which is our town's equivalent of the keys to the city, for her excellent service to the town of Woodside, and to read a proclamation into the record. I apologize for my tongue-tiedness. It's a very exciting moment, clearly. The Town of Woodside proclamation presenting Vicky Coe with a Woodside Honor Coin. Whereas Vicky Coe has been a resident of Woodside since April of 1985 with her husband Scott Mitchell and their family. And whereas, as a resident, Vicky has made Woodside her canvas, vibrantly painting our beautiful and unique town and creating a unified sense of place for our community. And whereas Vicky has been a driving force to bring music and art to the community, serving on the launch team for the Village Hub and creating Verde in the Village and other classical musical offerings for the community. And whereas Vicky joined the Woodside Arts and Culture Committee at its creation in 2013, helping establish First Fridays as a marquee event and organizing the Woodside Plein Air Painters. And whereas Vicky joined the Emergency Preparedness Committee at its creation in 2014, bringing her expertise as an ER doctor and cardiac anesthesiologist to help get her neighborhood and community prepared. And whereas Vicky organized and led the creation of a new Firewise neighborhood, Woodside West, which is my neighborhood, bringing 50 households together to improve fire prevention and mitigation. And whereas, through the countless hours dedicated to the town of Woodside and its residents, Vicky has infused the community with life and has been a true inspiration. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Brian Domkowski, on behalf of the residents in the town council of the town of Woodside, do hereby award Vicky Coe an honor coin for her contribution to the betterment of our community. Vicky, thank you.
An honor, it's a humbling honor, and I appreciate the fact that we have such great, we're very lucky. And thank you, town council, thank you, Brian, and Melissa for listening to all our problems and our whining and carrying on about committees and this and that and everything. It's really wonderful work.
Thank you, Vicky. You're an absolute treasure to the community. Thank you. Okay, the award portion of our program tonight is now over. And we'll be moving on to the business of the town. And we kick things off with the town manager report. Kevin?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, 4 things I want to mention tonight. And again, in no particular order. If you have not, I would suggest, well, I don't know when we leave tonight. It might still be light, but the solar installation project is done. And to the extent that such a thing can be aesthetically pleasing, I personally believe that it is. So if you walk down to the farther end or along the deck or the further end of the parking lot and look up at the buildings, sleek new solar. They are not active yet. It's part of a larger project with potential clean energy, so we won't be drawing energy from them for a few months, I believe. But PCE is highly motivated to get that going with PG&E's cooperation. But I think they, well, I'll leave it at that. I hope you agree. I think it's a great project. It's nice to have it done, and I think for this building in particular, it's a nice, and I'm going to credit Thalia or Steve Lubin, I forget which, made the observation about this building being moved and modified to meet the town's needs over its long history. And this is just another adaptation that speaks to the century we're in. So it's a nice project to finish. Also on the topic of fun, forget if it's Jen or Melissa who's point person for May Day, but the plan is I will be here with at least one of the town vehicles. So you can join us in the vehicle or walk along, but the folks who MC the parade want to know who's actually with us. So if you can let us know, I think we can do it day of, as long as we know who's there or who's planning to come. It'll also tell us if we have enough vehicles and whatever else. I haven't seen a forecast. Last year it poured. Those of you who were there remember it was it was wet. Town center area plan. Want to kind of give you a heads up of where we are with that. We are now fully engaged with the consultants, Good City. We've penciled in June 10th to come before council and kind of go over the parameters of that process, including I anticipate part of the discussion that night will be about the area boundaries. And the other thing that we have relayed to them, we have strongly advocated, and I believe that they will do this, that they will be reaching out to the key property owners in the town center between now and then as part of their initial fact finding and data gathering process. So that is very much underway. And then the last thing, I'm sort of somewhat on theme, and sorry, Alex, but I am going to correct one thing you said, and that is because, as you can imagine, I've been counting pretty closely. This is the second to the last meeting for me. There are not 4, there are 2. And after tonight, there will be 1.
But who's counting?
4 weeks. Yes, yes. But I am, and I know he made the rounds, but I'm pleased that joining us this evening is the person who will be sitting in this chair about 1 month from now. Hiding in the back, Jason Ledbetter. Jason is, and we really appreciate having him here tonight. He's going to be hanging out with me tomorrow and spending time with all of the town staff, which I both will have a big luncheon here as well. I think that's going to be great. And I know from talking to him that he's very committed to, all the staff is kind of curious and wondering, who's this new guy and what's he all about? And so I think tomorrow will be a good day for people to get a chance to meet him and he to get a flavor for them. And I think everyone involved will be, I think we'll feel better at the end of tomorrow. So that's my report this evening.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the council?
One quick comment.
Yes, sir.
Don't I always?
Of course.
Just some advice for Jason. I'm always told that when you come into a new terrain, you're supposed to go up to the biggest guy, right? And punch him right in the nose, sort of set the tone. I think that's Yaz. I'm not positive. Anyway, good luck. And we're happy you're here.
Wonderful. Any public comment? Yes, Ms. Go.
Wanted to let everybody know, I would be remiss in my Woodside Art Culture Committee activity to not let you know about First Friday, and we hope you can come. It's a fabulous event. These are 2 singers that are just absolutely amazing. They pack the house. So anyway, that's my plug for Woodside Art Culture.
Very good. Thank you. Thank
We
you.
hope to see you there.
We're going to fill your dance card, Jason. Okay, very good. Then with that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be approved by 1 roll call motion unless the request is made at the beginning of the meeting. Have an item withdrawn or transferred to the regular agenda. Are there any consent agenda items anyone on the council would like to poll? 3. Okay. 6. Okay, can we get a motion for 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8?
Second.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold,
Yes.
Councilmember Wall, Mayor Domkowski.
Yes, going in order. Councilmember Abarish, number 3.
So on page 5, there's a reference to overtime, and it says that it's applied on the federal level. I'm a employment lawyer, but I generally never represent or deal with any government employees. So I know that there's some rules that apply and some that don't. Jean, are you able to state if that should be updated or revised at all to state that it's in accordance with California laws and federal, or and then, sorry, and then the second part would be if we need to add a section that says double time for over 12 hours.
Yes, it should say federal law, and we will add some language for double time. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you.
With that, with that edit, would you like to make a motion?
I have one more question.
One more,
sorry.
okay.
And then I noticed that there's a requirement for 60 minutes of unpaid meal period. I was just wondering if there's any reasoning for that. So under California law, generally it's 30 minutes is required, but I was wondering if there's a thought process that went into this to have it.
I'll defer to Melissa, but I think it's just the practice of the town over the years.
That is correct. I don't know if Kevin, if you have more on, it's
I
always.
I don't.
Do you know if there would be any benefit in switching it to like 30 to 60 minutes to give people flexibility, or if that would mess up the schedule?
I mean, just sitting here, I don't see a downtime, but I mean, I don't see a downside to it, but the office itself is closed from noon to 1, so the effective has always been 60.
Ah,
And it's just the close. I mean, it's just the way that
Okay,
it matches our operations.
that makes sense.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you. That's all I have.
Would you like to make a motion with the first red line?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I say so moved?
I think so.
We have the direction. Thank you.
Second?
Jennifer?
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold, Councilmember Wall, Mayor Domkowski.
Yes. Councilmember Brown on number 6.
Yes. Last week during a circulation committee meeting, Yaz was describing projects that were underway on the roadway and specified that there was a bridge project that the federal funding for was getting squeezed and possibly not coming through on the timeline that we thought it would. What this brought to the fore for me was the idea that federal funding, state funding is not an unlimited source of money. And this particular project is $800,000 that we have received from the federal government. But the cost to do just the design phase is going to be $161,000. And I want us to think really hard if we think that we want to go into the pot for a lot of extra funding for this project, because I believe, Yaz, you thought it was going to be well over $1 million by the time project is through. Is that correct?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, council members. Usually the rule of thumb is between 7 to 10% on top of whatever the design cost is. So it could be $1 million, $1.1 million, could be a little bit less. However, again, we're doing this and we've reduced the scope. You know, we wanted to do the whole length. We've reduced it to the original scope, and we've negotiated with the consultant, and they've committed to getting us that obligated for the funds to be obligated, or getting the so-called E76 permit from Caltrans. So we, we'll find out what the construction cost is in moving forward with this process. Obviously, there's another check at the end of this project with where the council can decide whether or not we should go to construction, depending on what the cost is.
I'd like to suggest that we perhaps go forward with the project with a proviso that total spending is not to exceed the $800,000 that the federal government has said that they will put into the project.
How realistic is that? I mean, we can't do a half bike lane or something, right? I mean, That's the only issue, Dick. I'm not making light of what you said, but it's sort of all or nothing, I'm assuming, if we want the $800,000 grant.
Yes, and my understanding is, this was before my time, that this was, $800,000 was received about 5 years ago. So since then, obviously, the prices have gone up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I might point out is there could be other sources for it as well. If you cap it at 800,000, suppose,
I mean, our experience with the Glens is that costs tend to go a lot higher
oh yeah,
than lower. I just want to set a precedent going forward for the near future, because we don't know what some of this federal funding is going to be, or the state funding for that matter. That we try to limit ourselves on.
That's true.
Even though the money's free, let's not exceed it.
Yeah, look, I mean, one of the things that sort of unfortunate is the design cost we eat, right? We can't apply that against the grant. So we are in for 20%, in fact, 15-20% of the value of the project out of the gates just to see the bid, right? It is 800,000. I mean, it's hard to walk away from if we put in a couple hundred and there's 800 coming from the feds and a community funded grant. I personally would be reticent to do the cap. We will get a chance. Would you be satisfied if we get a chance, as Yaz mentioned, that we'll get a chance to review the document and make a decision at that time whether or not we should go forward?
I mean, yeah.
Because we can
I mean,
put a
we're-
cap
like
in
I
at
said,
that
We're
point.
already committed to the planning expenses. We say yes,
Yeah,
to this.
in for a penny and for
And I'm willing to go with that, but I kind of want to set the tone for council for the near future of let's
Yeah.
look at projects on a really tight budget standpoint for a while.
Yeah, and we appreciate that financial watchdog attitude for sure, and at least I do for sure. As long as this got pulled, I do think there's a typo. You're right, it was 2021, and it says 2023 is when the grant was awarded, and so just with that strike as well. Minor edit that doesn't mean anything, but, okay.
Okay, with that proviso, I'll move that we pass resolution number 6.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Very persuasive.
You, sir, we appreciate it. Appreciate your fine tooth comb on this. Jennifer, sorry.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes,
Councilmember Gold,
yes.
Councilmember Wall, Mayor Domkowski.
Yes, thank you. Okay, moving on. Old business, we have the review and recommendation of a denial of appeal and a confirmation of a planning commission decision on a one-year conditional use permit for Menlo Country Club. And we're handing this off to you, Sage. Did you want, sorry, you're giving me the,
excuse me.
yes, sir. Oh, I apologize. You have to.
I live within 500 feet of the Menlo Country Club. Therefore, I have to recuse myself from voting on this matter, so I will exit party elsewhere.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Okay, Sage.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. So we were bringing back an item to you, and I'll just give a little brief background to remind us where we're at. The Menlo Country Club had a CUP approved to construct a new clubhouse and a new fitness facility at their swimming pool area. With that CUP, there was a condition of approval to review the operational conditions within 1 year after that project was completed. Planning Commission reviewed the operational conditions after 1 year and did find the Menlo Country Club to be in compliance with those conditions. That decision was appealed to the town council. The appellant expressed concerns related to the noise of the Menlo Country Club events and felt that the club was out of compliance with the conditional use permit. The appellant also expressed concerns related to a shade structure that was constructed at a lawn near the pool area. So the last town council meeting reviewed the appeal. After reviewing the staff report, taking public testimony, town council denied the appeal with direction with the following 3 items to be completed. The Menlo Country Club was to remove unpermitted electrical components at the shade structure. The town was to complete 6 months of continuous noise monitoring at the Menlo Country Club and at the appellate site. And in an effort to address noise concerns at the lawn area, the council provided direction for no dining tables or chairs or entertainment to take place at the shade structure area. So the first item, the electrical components, the Menlo Country Club did get a permit to remove those unpermitted electrical installations, and it did pass final inspection. That electrical was removed from the site. The second item related to the noise monitoring. The town looked to retain an independent noise consultant to complete 6-month continuous noise monitoring with monitors located at the appellant site and the Menlo Country Club. The town spoke with 3 noise consultants to complete the 6-month monitoring, and all noted that such monitoring would be prohibitively expensive and, more importantly, would not provide useful data because it would pick up any noise generated without being managed by the noise consultant. It would be difficult to understand the source points of any spikes of noise levels. All 3 of the consultants recommended to monitor specific events with a noise consultant present during the monitoring. The town retained Jeffrey Pack, noise consultant. Mr. Pack reached out to the appellant and Menlo Country Club to look at locations to install the equipment on each property at the specific events. The appellant declined the offer as it was not what the town council specifically directed for the continuous noise monitoring. So therefore, staff did direct Mr. Pack to do the monitoring at specific events at the Menlo Country Club pool area. At each of the 4 events, the noise levels were within the range of what was permitted by the CUP. Based on the collection of the objective noise data for the 4 major events, it does show that the Menlo Country Club is in compliance with the operational conditions, specifically with the noise conditions and the number of events that are allowed at the property. So with that, staff recommends that the town council pass the attached draft resolution denying the appeal and without any further conditions, as it is noted based on this objective data that the club is in compliance with the operational conditions. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Sage. Any questions for staff? Councilmember Everich?
So the 2 conditional, or there were, I know there are 3 conditional requirements, but 2 would remain because the one was for a 6-month period. So are those, is there any, or would those would be wiped out through this, right?
So there's specific conditions that the country club is not supposed to exceed specific noise levels, and that remains with the conditional use permit, as well as the number of events that are allowed. But these items that we just discussed, these were in relation just to the direction that was provided to the town from the town council at the last meeting regarding the appeal. So there would not be further noise study unless related to this item. If there was some need in the future for some other reason, that may take place.
And the other condition about not allowing seating.
Yeah, so it was related to a noise concern, and the review before the council was really to look at if they were in compliance with the conditions of the conditional use permit. And given that we have this objective data showing that they're in compliance with these large noisy events, that staff recommends to just deny the appeal without any additional restrictions.
That's all my questions.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilmember Wall?
So I had a question about the CUP and the shade structure. So the CUP was drafted and approved without contemplation of the shade structure. Is that right?
That's correct. It was the lawn area in which the shade structure was shown was contemplated, and that was installed per the plan. The shade structure was a building permit that was issued after the CUP was reviewed.
Okay, so just to kind of drill down on that. So there's nothing in the CUP that that regulates the shade structure at all.
That's correct.
Okay, but if we were to deny the appeal, then the Menlo Country Club would be able to continue doing things with the shade structure without any accountability vis-à-vis the CUP.
Well, still the noise restrictions are come into play in any part of whether it's the shade structure or the lawn area or the,
Okay.
so to some degree that would still regulate noise.
And then I wanted to ask about just kind of the characterization of the appeal process in the staff report. So, and just kind of what I heard, how you presented it, you said that the town council heard the appeal and that the council gave direction on 3 items. And I think you said electrical, noise, and then what was the third
And
one?
the last was just the direction on the limitations for use of the shade structure.
That's right. Okay. In my recollection, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it was more than direction, right? We had a pretty lengthy debate at that appeal. And the way I recall it is that we articulated some very specific additional operational conditions that we wanted to see in the CUP.
So we weren't reviewing the CUP, but these were just the 3 specific items. There was to be no chairs or tables or entertainment. And there was a lot of discussion about what that meant. But those were the specific items that were provided in the direction.
Yeah, so maybe Jean, you can help me. I mean, my memory is that we had a really long debate about whether to grant the appeal or whether we would deny the appeal but build in these additional operational conditions, because I think there was an acknowledgement that the CUP was deficient, that it had been written without any reference to the shade structure, because it couldn't have been because the shade structure came later. And that was what Menlo Country Club really felt a lot of discomfort with, was that we would be adding these operational conditions into the CUP. So my take was that it was more than just direction from the council, that it was very explicit requirement that additional operational conditions would be added to the CUP.
Yes, you did. You did that evening deny the appeal. At the end of that, there was still concern expressed on the council about the appellant's contentions that the club was operating in a way that was violating the noise limitations in their CUP. But there was no objective evidence for you to look at. That was the appellant's observation, and the club's observation was, no, we are not. And I think it was Councilmember Fluid who said, we really need some independent, objective evidence to look at to determine what we ought to do here. But in giving us that direction, you also said, when you bring back a final resolution, please have a condition in it that says no chairs, no tables, and no dining. We're back before you this evening as a staff recommending that you do not include that as a condition in the CUP going forward, because the objective data, which we've gathered from an independent noise consultant, shows that the club is not operating in violation of the use permit. And I think it's important to look at the events that were chosen to be monitored, because we tried to figure out the loudest events that were located in an area that would most directly affect the appellants, because we really wanted to get some good data for you to take a look at so that you could make an objective determination of whether or not you have the country club operating outside its CUP. And we have no evidence that they are operating outside the conditions of the CUP. And it's for that reason that the staff is now suggesting that you do not impose that condition by way of the CUP.
Thank you for that. And then one follow-up question. Can you refresh my memory? Had we granted the appeal, would that have opened up the possibility for us to redraft the CUP?
Had you granted the appeal, it would have depended what grounds on which you granted it. Because granting an appeal wouldn't give you carte blanche to go back in and look at every single condition. There has to be some nexus. If somebody's violating a specific condition of approval in their CUP, then you would look at that condition. And if you determined objectively that they were not in compliance with that, you could deal with that particular condition of the
Okay,
CUP.
but theoretically, had we granted the appeal, assuming that we had a nexus or an appropriate basis, we could have right-sized the CUP, so to speak.
You could have made changes to the conditions, and I know that the council did express some concerns about the conditions. I will say, though, that in the past, there have been opportunities for any person who wants to object to those conditions to have appealed and then filed litigation over those, and the time frame within which to contest particularly the noise, because I know that appellants. But those conditions were imposed in 2019, and those conditions were not challenged by way of litigation.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Maybe just one procedural one. And I appreciate what's being advocated. But the idea of creating sort of a better use permit, if you will, is it's not really a tool in our toolbox tonight, correct? Okay. And I appreciate the sentiment significantly, but I just want to make sure everybody understands that we aren't here modifying conditions tonight. That's not what's on the agenda.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay.
Just quick follow-up to that, though. I mean, that could be on a future agenda, though, if we were to not go forward with denying the appeal. I mean, it's only assuming that we deny the appeal, that that's not on the table.
We did deny the appeal.
Well, we are reaffirming that denial tonight. So the appeal hasn't been officially denied at this point. It's what we're talking about right now.
But the appeals, we definitively denied.
The appeal was denied. This is just a question of what language do you want in that resolution? And we're suggesting that it be a resolution with no additional conditions imposed. But I will say, if in the future there are complaints that are made to staff, staff will investigate those. And like with every other business that operates under its conditional use permit, if staff determines in the future that there are any violations, then those would be dealt with by bringing it before the Planning Commission for a hearing to amend or revoke the CUP. And that could be appealed to the council.
Yeah, maybe just to articulate what I'm trying to say is that the appeal was denied with the inclusion of certain operational conditions. And we're here tonight saying, well, I don't know how you all will vote, but I think what the staff is proposing is that we remove those operational conditions and continue to deny the appeal without the operational conditions that we had insisted on before when we heard this.
That's correct. And two of them we think have been satisfied, both the electrical and the noise to the best of our ability. And that was directed at staff, not at the country club or at the appellants. And we've satisfied that to the best of our ability.
Any other questions? Okay. I think with that, we will close down questions for staff and open up public comment. Are there any members of the public that are here today that would like to speak?
Hi, good
Hi.
evening. I'm Debbie.
And before you, thank you, because you're a highly interested party, no shot clock on these comments.
Thank you. I'm Debbie Mendelson, excuse me, one of the appellates. And I just have to say, first, I'm here with such incredible sadness and frustration that we're here over something that this council, not exactly this council, voted on July 25th, 2023. And it's 21 months later, and it's not resolved. And the fact of the matter is that Kevin and I didn't even know what had transpired until a week ago, last Friday, the day before we were leaving town for a week, that in fact, and I must say, the night we met here, we went out and we were incredibly disappointed that you denied our appeal. But we both talked to one another and said, But I feel that they listened. I feel that the council asked questions. I feel that they had an understanding. And that was based on the fact of how you put forth your denial. It wasn't what we wanted. It wasn't what we believed was just or even legal, but we felt heard. You've already, I don't have to reiterate it because you've already heard what those 3 points were. One, in fact, the lights, we haven't seen the lights, and we didn't see the lights last summer from the Sage, the pavilion. But I am really baffled, and I have said this for 6 to the new council person. I kind of hope we came with a full packet prior to that July 25th meeting with logs for every single event at that club and what took place, page after page, and photographs. We didn't redo that tonight because the 3 of you were here then. I hope you can understand how just beyond frustration this is, that this is still going on and not resolved. I guess I was going to go through, I mean, it's been said, I'm going to go through. We were told, and Sage stopped me after that meeting on the way out the door on the 25th of July and said, I want you to know, Debbie, we won't be able to install the monitors until December. And I said, you know, okay, we have a month or 2 left. Another really important thing that we have said over 6 years' time is that with the exception of one planning commissioner who was new to the planning commission and called me personally to ask to come to my home to see what this is we were complaining about, not one staff, not one council person, not any other planning commissioner has ever been to our home to firsthand witness. That's why we so much embrace the concept of the continuous monitoring from our deck. Because in fact, what you hear, and I really don't understand the expense that the town went to hire this company, which by the way, we were never informed of until a week ago last Friday, that you put the monitor in exactly the same place that it was before when Menlo Country Club was monitoring. And in fact, took no heed to the fact of Salter, the club's own people that said what the sound would be like when they finished the fitness center and that, indicated how the sound rises. The sound is not the same at the level of the country club as it is up at our home, and doubly impacted because our home is an L shape. It blocks that sound when it's rising, and it's like an amphitheater. It's been referred to that way many times. After Sage, when I called Sage in December, a couple of weeks in, saying, when are the monitors coming? He said, oh, Jean's handling it now. When nothing happened December, January, Paul came to the house, called and asked if he could come over. Kevin and I said yes. He came, and one of the things he said twice, and I don't really understand the relevance of this, one of the things he said twice was that he was not there on behalf of the council. He said he had met with the country club, and I appreciated the fact that it was in an attempt to come to a resolution, and that they were considering or would put in a sound wall. My response to that, if you recall, was that'd be fantastic. If that works and that eliminates the noise, and it's beyond noise, you know, what we endure, that'd be great. I asked him, I had 2 caveats. One was, if the club went to the expense of doing that and it doesn't work, what recourse would we have? Because in fact, I can see the club, because of my dealings over the years, saying, hey, we put in this big expensive sound wall, we're done. So I asked Paul on his first visit to give me the name of the company that they were utilizing, the vendor that they were going to utilize. He supplied that name. Kevin will fill you in when he speaks, but suffice it to say, when we talked to them, gave them the angle, the distance and all that, they said, it's not going to work. Okay? Then come, I guess it was May, just before the noise would begin at the club, the intense noise, we called the town again, or no, I think a sound person called us that said the town had told him to call us and said that he wanted to come to the home. Excuse me, I have to get some water. Much better. Asked him if he wanted to come to our house and he was going to install a meter. I said, okay, but he's going to be there and he has to stay there for the 4 hours of it running. And I said, and then it was going to be more than one time. And I didn't want this stranger coming to my house, but more importantly, I said, no, that's not what the council voted on, because that would defy being able to show the very thing that we have been talking about all along, is that noise isn't just emanating on the day of events. There is continuous noise, as we showed in pictures of double bouncy houses in this football field area that was never even allowed in the beginning. In 2019, when we talked about what they were doing with the 2-story fitness center, that it wasn't acceptable that it just be 3 or 4 times in their season, because noise and what goes on exceeds just those days. Segue to this year, I called Kevin, and man, this is a bad night to have to say what I want to say after that glowing report that the gentleman gave at the beginning. But I will preface it by the fact that I like Kevin as an individual, and that I actually pitched to Susan George, if you all know Susan George, that he'd be our new town manager. But I must say, in the 4 phone calls since the end of February and the 4 emails, I feel you've lied. Kevin, can you look at me?
Hey, Debbie?
Yeah.
You got to talk to us.
Oh,
We'll talk to staff.
Well, I
And-
just.
And
it
I
was-
want to make sure there's no.
I kind of wanted the eye contact.
I
because this is-
appreciate the effect,
Okay,
but I appreciate
I
the
feel
frustration.
that
But
he.
we want to make sure we don't, no personal attacks.
Okay,
in the room.
well, I feel that he did not tell me the truth, because not one time in any of those exchanges, when he could have had an opportunity to say, oh, we did testing last summer and that's it. It was Gene and I are taking care of it. Gene and I are working on it. Gene and I will take care of it and have the monitoring done. So you can imagine on April 11th, when we open up an email with what you have before you tonight, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Now, it's not only the club that presents difficulty in our lives. And I just want to add, and you might, I'm not kidding you, this is not made up. I've lived in this house a very long time, but I'm older now. This is my golden years. I'm not at work all day long and out at night every night. This is where we live. And the club last year, when in 2024, which is a year after this meeting, used their pavilion. There was a woman's, it was all women having a meeting, sitting and dining under that thing. And I can't tell you all the time, because the truth is, and I especially direct this to you because you've never seen me before in your life, that we leave our home now on Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day, so that we can not have to endure like we're in an amphitheater. That's one. And two, I just lost my train of thought. We have to leave our house. We are inconvenienced, the noise. And last year, they had the folks under the table. I can't say how many times, because we exit when there's big events. The other thing is, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, I used to have yeah, I let people, I'd host, I guess that's the word, when there were events for organizations that I belong to. Has had to stop. And not because, yes, on the calendar, they're doing this on this day, but because if a family or two families get together on that lawn area that was never designated as an entertainment area, you know, the noise is deafening. People can't talk to one another on our deck. So, and just in keeping with, well, will this all go away? I called the Menlo Country Club and I emailed Mr. Gonzalez in the beginning of February about a noise that we were hearing coming from the country club. First, I asked our uphill neighbors, in fact, that it wasn't something on their property. And they said no. He responded and he thanked me for getting in touch with him and wanted to let me know they went and checked and they had a broken fan and they were going to repair it. I waited, it was like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. The noise is still going, it goes at night. And no response. Kevin sent a second email, no response. Called Kevin Bryant. Kevin said, I'll look into it. To this day, every freaking night, there is this machine sound going and going and going. The club didn't respond, the town didn't respond. I'm asking you to uphold, and actually for your integrity, what you voted on July 25th, 2023. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Greenwood, would you like to go? Okay. Yeah, well, we certainly can accommodate. Get a microphone down there, sure.
Someday you'll be old like me.
Oh, I get it, trust me.
My name's Kevin Greenwood and I live at 145 Sheridan Way. I don't need to recap the CUP, but the review by the Planning Commission, as stated by Chairperson Marilyn Volke at the Planning Commission meeting November 9th, 2022, said that the CUP never included a request for or approval by the commission to use the area south of the pool as a new dining entertainment area. She said she was shocked that there was not supposed to be anything south of the pool that faces the neighbors. That included the fire pit that could not be at the south end of the pool because it would be a gathering place and they wanted to minimize the noise to the homes of the neighbors. She has noted that the dining entertainment area was not within the CUP, and that's what you're approving or denying or whatever you're doing with it, but it was not within the CUP. A few things working, just looking at the caveats to our appeal denial. First, we were informed after the July 25th meeting that MCC's legal team objected, saying the council could not add stipulations to the CUP, and there was a threat of legal action. The council put forth and approved those conditions in the presence of the town attorney, who I expect would know about that sort of thing. Guess not. Second, the council directed that the town install sound monitors on both MCC's property and at the appellate's deck to collect data to be reviewed. This independent and objective data was requested because there was not enough independent objective noise data. This was not accomplished as directed or in a meaningful manner. And third, based on concerns about noise generated on the lawn area, the council directed no dining tables or chairs be placed under the shade structure and no entertainment be hosted there in the lawn area. They've not only had food service beneath the pavilion, but they've now conveniently set up tables and umbrellas at the south of the pool so that they can put on whatever they want. And it's down on the lawn, so we get all the noise. On operational conditions, one that comes up is powered equipment at and around the fitness center and cottages is limited, can't start before 9 a.m. Unfortunately, it's a private club and we can't go down there and see where they have their mowers or blowers, but we get mowers, blowers, and trash can noises as early as 5 o'clock in the morning. And I can't help that a hole on the golf course is near the fitness center, so it doesn't count. It's a problem. Part of the CUP had to do with outdoor amplified sound events at the clubhouse or on the Menlo Country Club grounds, that would cease at 10 or 11. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean the south of the pool that wasn't part of the CUP is the Menlo Country Club grounds, so they can do whatever they want until 10 or 11 o'clock at night? Also, the fact that the decibel level that was set, every other major private country club on the peninsula is limited to a 55, 65 dB. And the former council member who pulled one out of the air and said, oh, 65, 85. I don't even know if we knew what that meant, but 10 decibels is twice the volume. And we already knew from the Salter study that it was likely that just with the pool noise, sound at our house could increase 10 decibels or double the volume from what we'd been having previously. So when you take the events and the sound level and where this is going to take place, it creates a real mess for us. And my understanding of conditional use permits is that they're supposed to protect the neighbors if there's an issue of disturbance, moral issues. Not all these things come into play, but this is not protecting us. So there's a maximum of 25 events to be held at the fitness facility, pool, and pool patio during the year. But with some things that have happened with discussions between the planning department and MCC, they've blurred the lines, because now if something happens, is south of the pool is that part of the events. Because we have 13 events scheduled this year. And as soon as we have dinners down there or luncheons or bouncy houses, was that an event? And my take is, if it happens anywhere in that area, it should be on the schedule, because you know in advance when you're going to have those things. It's not new news. The staff recommendation states, Mr. Pack's report provides council with independent and credible objective evidence. And that MCC is complying with the noise restrictions imposed by the operational conditions of the 2019 CUP. Those restrictions, which appellants have indicated are inadequate, could have been challenged when imposed in 2019, but they were not. Maybe the staff missed the fact that south of the lawn didn't exist in 2019. The fitness center didn't exist in 2019. And any knowledge of how this noise was going to work didn't exist in 2019. So we couldn't object. And tonight's recommendation is, whereas in denying the appeal, council directed further noise monitoring of MCC's operations be conducted by an independent consultant. My understanding from what I read and heard was council directed continuous monitoring for a year by an independent consultant. And as Debbie indicated, I contacted MCC's proposed sound wall and talked with Kevin Anbarden. And he wrote back to me and said, seems you have a pretty good feeling for acoustic principles. As much as I'd like to tell you our product would work and it would provide some benefit, I think the sheer size would make it cost prohibitive. And asked about cutting noise with the sound wall, they replied, obviously not in your situation. So we didn't go any further with Paul, with his efforts to negotiate this, but we worked with the knowledge that we had it in writing from Kevin Bryant. And I'll quote the letter in here. Let's see. 31st of May, 2024, he stated, the staff will move forward installing the sound monitoring devices as directed by the council. That was our expectation. And having one person there for 4 days to catch what could happen at any time during a week for 5 months wasn't going to do the job. But he didn't come back and say, cost too much. I'm going back to the town council and we're going to revisit this. He didn't say it cost too much. That's why we're not doing it. He said, I've talked to other companies and this is really the only viable way to do it. I've contacted sound companies. They do this all the time at schools, property management companies, work sites, job sites, construction. They have to do this. So it's not new news. It's not something that's out of the ordinary. And so when I look at this, I know it's a lot to digest, but since you denied our appeal, subject to 3 conditions, and those 3 conditions, 2 of them anyway, have not been properly taken care of, I suggest that you withdraw the denial and get a proper CUP that addresses the current situation. The CUP that was approved by the Planning Commission doesn't address this. This was not part of what they approved. So I don't think you should fall back on the Planning Commission approved it. Marilyn Volke already said this wasn't part of what they approved. It was never brought up. And Debbie and I did a walkthrough with the manager for MCC, the construction manager, and the project manager from outside, Michael Stoner. And we went through and they said, we're moving the building back this far over here. We're doing this over here. There was never one mention of we're going to take down all the trees, put in a lawn, put in a dining area, and everything's going to change. That was never brought up. So we think we had firsthand information on what was supposed to happen, and it didn't. And we believe that if you acted in good faith and said these 3 conditions are necessary for us to deny the appeal, and those can't be taken care of, haven't been taken care of now, except for one item in, 2 years, I'm asking that action be taken because it's not fair to us as residents of Woodside. And as Debbie pointed out, people don't live at MCC, except the town manager has a home there, but we're residents of Woodside. We're not just a gathering place. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Greenwood. Are there any other public comments?
Yes, thank you. My name is Steve Gonzalez. I'm the general manager of Menlo Country Club. Want to thank council for having me tonight. I am just here on behalf of the club to say that we have believed all along and continue to believe that we are in compliance with the CUP. We believe that we demonstrated that to the Planning Commission and was found to be in compliance. We feel like we've demonstrated that here to council and found to be in compliance. We had third-party monitoring of some of the largest events we have for the summer, where we are making the most noise and found in compliance. And just as a reminder, because I heard a couple of times that this is over a 5-month period, a 6-month period, the CUP only allows us to do food and beverage for 3 months. Our season is Memorial Day to Labor Day. So even if we were to monitor for an extended period of time beyond that, there's no food and beverage service up there. Our season is only Memorial Day to Labor Day. It's only those 3 months. So we appreciate and agree with staff's recommendation, and we appreciate all the time that's been spent on this particular issue. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. We have one hand up in the Zoom room for me. Not me, but me. Me, would you like to speak? It looks like you're on mute. There you go.
Yes, I'm Bonnie Schreiber, and can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I also live above the Menlo Country Club and above Debbie and Kevin. And I have to say, they are not exaggerating that there are times, too many times, when there's just so much noise that you can, the biggest part is our deck because it faces, these different activities. But we can even go in our house, shut the windows in the middle of the summer, and still have to turn the TV up loud because it's so loud with different events. And I don't know if the Menlo Country Club had moderated when they knew they were being, or what the situation is, but I know that last summer it was much more moderate than it has ever been. We've lived here for over 30 years and it's just increased over the years, the amount of noise. And it is like the amphitheater effect where we're above it. So it just gets amplified. We can't be outside and have a conversation. And I'll keep it short, but I have to agree wholeheartedly with Debbie and Kevin and what they're saying. And it affects other neighbors. It isn't just, our 2 houses. There are other houses involved too. But, maybe those people have young kids and they're used to a lot of noise. I don't know. I don't know why anybody else isn't complaining. That's all.
Thank you. Any other public comments? See none in the Zoom room, so we will close public comment and go to deliberation. Is there anyone that would like to start on deliberation?
Start.
Okay, thank you, Council.
So maybe I'll lead with my conclusion, which is I cannot support the resolution that's in the packet. There's a lot of detail and a lot of history to this topic, but if you take a step back and kind of look at it from a 30,000 foot perspective, what I have observed is that the council heard this, heard the appeal from the appellants. And I remember this appeal vividly, in part because it was my birthday. So I remember being here on my birthday. And I remember the debate. And an essential feature of my vote that evening denying the appeal was that we would include these additional operational conditions. So we spent a lot of time that night, and I'm glad to hear that you felt heard that night at least, because I think the council really did go back and forth. Are we going to grant the appeal? Are we going to deny the appeal? What would this look like? And we, at least in my mind, I felt like the CUP was totally inadequate for the reasons that have been stated tonight. And I was able to wrap my head around voting to deny the appeal only because we were going to specifically include these additional operational conditions. And it wasn't just soft direction to the staff. It was explicit inclusion of these additional operational conditions, which we felt that evening rectified the very obvious deficiencies in the CUP. From a timeline perspective, what happened next was Menlo Country Club strenuously objected to those additional operational conditions for obvious reasons. They like having events on the lawn. They like the shade structure. I've been to those events. They're lovely. and I imagine would have a pretty significant impact on their bottom line. So no surprise, Menlo Country Club really didn't like those additional operational conditions. The topic went silent from my perspective for quite a while, and now we're back here tonight. And we're being asked, the council's being asked to confirm its denial of the appeal without those operational conditions, which for me, like I said, were an essential feature of my vote that evening. So, you know, would use whatever words, for me, like I absolutely cannot support the resolution. That's in my mind a total failure of due process here. What I would like to see is either we continue to include those operational conditions like we voted on that evening, or we find some other procedural way to reopen this. But what's before us in the packet and the resolution tonight, I absolutely cannot support.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to go next, Paul? Thank you, sir.
So this is a very difficult issue for me because I know Debbie and Kevin. Well, actually, Debbie may be one of the very first people in Woodside that I ever met. And I've been at her house more than a dozen times, including when there was noise going on, by the way. And I've also been at her neighbor's house when there's events going on as well. So it's difficult for me. And I thought about, as is my style, as members of the council and staff know, to go point by point. I'm not going to do that here because I don't think it serves the purpose. I am going to go through the timeline a little bit in a second, but we're not here to rehear this case. We heard it. We heard the appeal, and the Planning Commission heard, you know, whether or not the Menlo Country Club was in compliance. And I think it's important to go through these dates because there is some issues related to that when people were informed or not informed. It goes way back to, and by the way, both of these property owners are my constituents. They're in my district, which is why, actually, it wasn't the council technically that asked me to intervene. It was staff asked me to intervene. Council approved it. I did not take this action on my own. And in fact, some members of the council may recall that it wasn't something that I wanted to do. But I agreed to do it mainly because they were my constituents. But it does go back to June of 2019 when the Planning Commission approved the original design review. By the way, I wanted to compliment staff on this report. I mentioned that earlier. You took us through this chapter and verse, and I did appreciate the authors of that report. But back in June 2019, please remember these dates as I'm going through them. The Planning Commission approved the design review. In August, 2 months later, the town council, the Planning Commission approved it. By the way, they approved it unanimously. And despite what Marilyn Volke may have said, she did approve the that design. It was done unanimously. The town council 2 months later, based on an appeal, added 15 conditions. Those conditions were the number of events and when they could happen and noise levels and all sorts of things like that. The Menlo Country Club made their investment based on those conditions. And that's one reason why I'm reluctant to revisit conditions. Because I agree that both parties, and I'm certainly, I think that Debbie and Kevin made a great point. They live there. And I've been in your house. I know where it faces, and I'm well aware that the sound travels to your house differently than it does to the property line of the Menlo Country Club where this was measured. And I'm sympathetic to that. But I think that there's a fairness issue to the Menlo Country Club as well, that I don't like reopening up conditions when they've met them, at least according to the Planning Commission unanimously, and according to the town council unanimously, that they met the condition. The Menlo Country Club reopened in October of 2021. And as part of that design review approval, they had to come back at 1 year to see whether or not they were still in compliance with the conditional use permit. And they did. The 1 year came, they reopened October 2021, October of 2022, 1 year later, was that 1 year review. And the planning commission heard that on three different hearings, November in 2022, February 2023, and in April of 2023, they voted 6-0 that they were in compliance. So I just wanted to address that point of changing the conditional use permit. You know, that's like, that wasn't before us and that wasn't before them. And I think that's the legal standing. I'm not going to discuss anything that was privileged between the, but I think that people should understand we were counseled and advised by our town attorney about what we could do and what we couldn't do. And without going into any detail on that, I would just say that when somebody comes before you with a, are you in compliance or not in compliance? And you said, that's what was before us. And just as the planning commission said they were in compliance, we unanimously said you were in compliance too. Adding conditions to it was not on our agenda. And it's sort of like somebody coming in appealing their murder conviction and we're convicting them of armed robbery. I mean, it's just, that wasn't before us. So I sort of understand where the Menlo Country Club was on that issue. That decision by the planning commission was appealed. I think if I recall correctly, it was on April 17th, 2023, just a few days after the original planning commission. I can see the town attorney nodding. I'm trying to remember my dates here. That was, and then that was appealed by the property owners, and it came before the town council, and we heard that, and it was a very lengthy, you know, Councilmember Wall is exactly right. It was a very difficult appeal, but again, I want to just state was before us was the planning commission correct that they were in compliance or not? Not to rehear it, not to set new conditions, not to do all these other things. So I think that the Menlo Country Club, like them or not, has a legal position that we had no right to do that. And we can reopen it. I guess we could also, you know, we could do whatever we want, but I think that there are some fairness issues, not only to the property owners who are suffering from the noise, but also to the Menlo Country Club, who we set certain standards and we should live up to those as well. In July 23rd, 2023, unanimously, the town council denied the appeal and upheld the decision of the planning commission. And I recall very distinctly about Councilmember Fluitt saying, we need data, we need hard data. And we do. And at that point, we met privately with counsel. There was threatened litigation. We talked about it, and without going into detail about what was discussed behind closed doors, that's when I was asked to intervene and to discuss it. And I met with Kevin, Sage, the town attorney, and we discussed about a plan of going forward. And I first met with Debbie Mendelson, and Kevin, I'm not sure if you were there or not, but I know I met with Debbie first. I never met with the Menlo Country Club. I didn't meet with them. And I gave that information. In fact, I wrote it in an email which followed up on that I was asked to do this. And I was acting, we had tabled the matter and said we would not have tonight's meeting to do the resolution until we would give the folks a chance to sort of work this out amongst yourselves. And I was there to facilitate that. And I did this shuttle diplomacy, if you will. I think I was at the Menlo Country Club twice. I was at the Mendelson property 3 or 4 times, if I'm not mistaken. And by the way, I did find the Menlo Country Club willing to do an awful lot of things, including that's when I first found out about this sound wall. I think I actually found it out from Sage. I think he mentioned that they wanted to do that first. But I didn't have notes on that in particular. And when I met with Debbie, and Kevin was there, hopefully they'll remember this, it was about sound. And the point that I was trying to make was, if you don't hear the sound, not that that's even possible, but if you don't hear sound, what do you care what they're doing down there? I did say it. The phrase I used, which you will hopefully remember, was they could be firing off howitzers down there. I probably said that a dozen times. If you don't hear it, what do you care? I mean, I don't hear a lot of stuff in my neighborhood. I don't care what's going on if there's a party, as long as I don't hear the sound. Again, I'm not sure that's possible given the logistics of your house and the contours and those sorts of issues. So it's all about sound. And I came up with this 4-part plan. I'm not going to go into detail because everybody's heard this, probably ad nauseum, but it was, let's monitor the sound this season, which was Memorial Day to Labor Day, I think. We'll monitor it. We'll find out, we'll set the sound levels and see what they are. We can monitor them because this is outside the auspices of the town. We're trying to have the two parties work it out on their own. We can put the sound monitoring equipment on your deck. We can even put it in your kitchen if you want. It's up to you guys to figure it out. The Menlo Country Club would then take some mitigation efforts, and they were going to build a sound wall at considerable expense, hundreds of thousands of dollars was my understanding, and replace some trees. There were a bunch of other things that we had discussed kind of there. And we were trying to work all of that out. That took place over a period of several months, starting right after the July 23rd decision. It was within almost days, maybe weeks of that decision, because we were so concerned about threatened litigation, and that I think everybody had kind of a bad taste in their mouth about that meeting, that we knew that both parties were very unsatisfied, and we were trying to resolve that. I was trying to resolve it, especially. The second phase would be that the Menlo Country Club would install this stuff. And the third phase was we would monitor it again and see what happened. And if the fourth phase was the analysis of it, and this is where it kind of, I never got this far because it never went this far. If in fact the sound was sufficiently attenuated, was I think the phrase that the engineers use, if it was sufficiently reduced at the Mendelsohn property, hey, a nice result, a victory for everybody, and everybody's happy. If it didn't reduce, we need to figure that out. And that's why that was really my next step, to go back and forth and say, okay, well, what if it doesn't go down? How we need, we've now monitored it pre, we've installed the sound reducing equipment, we've monitored it post. If it's successful, that's fantastic. If it's not successful, that's not so fantastic. We need to figure out how to do with it. Never went that far. And I know that Kevin especially was dealing with IMI. This is a firm, I think, because it was in my original email to you guys that was the firm that was going to build the sound wall. And they do commercial installations. And this went on for quite a while. And we had a couple of meetings where I got the feedback that this wasn't going to be successful. And I don't need to go into a great deal of detail about what I heard and what went back and forth. I never actually met with the Menlo Country Club after that. But I did receive a letter saying we've decided not to move forward because in discussions with the sound wall firm, Debbie and Kevin felt that it wouldn't be sufficient. It wasn't going to do it. And that may be correct. We'll never know. I just don't know. But that email that I got from Debbie at that point said, what's going on with Sage? He said he was going to install the sound monitoring equipment. And I said, all of that was put on hold while we were talking. We deliberately did not move forward. This wasn't like everybody was sitting on their hands. We were trying to let the parties work it out amongst themselves, which didn't happen. That's what happened. There's no doubt about it. No, this is our deliberation. My emails and my letters stated actually very clearly. And in fact, I'll read the relevant part. No, it's actually not necessary. At that point, we needed to get the data to find out what it is. And I didn't know about it either, but I did see the tracings that PAC put together here, and each sheet is 1 hour period that's there. And everybody admits, in fact, we heard it tonight from both parties, that July 4th is one of the big events. I have to believe that's one of the noisiest events of the year. In fact, we heard it, I think Bonnie mentioned that as well, if I'm not mistaken. And all the tracings seem to be within the 45 to 50 decibel range. All of them. There's a few aberrations. There's a couple of lines that go beyond that, not many. And in fact, I think the reason for the real-time monitoring, if I'm not mistaken, and Sage can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I am, is because the engineer needed to be there to say what the sound is. Otherwise, you're just going to have to listen to the recording, and you can't always tell. I see a spike, but I don't know what it was, and you can't tell. The biggest sound was a wood chipper that came in there for about a half hour, and the lines are just kind of crazy at that point. By the way, they still didn't go over 65 decibels, but they were pretty high. And also some birds came by, and there were some other issues here. But at the property line, which I admit is not the ideal space, I wanted the monitoring equipment on the Mendelssohn's kitchen table, but that wasn't available to us. So I think that we did the best we could. So let's get back to what the issue is. The issue is sound. And if you don't hear anything, or if they're in compliance, that's where we have to stand. And I think that, as I said, this is difficult for me, but I also have to deal with this objectively with two different constituents in my district. And the sound appears, at least at the property line, which was the only thing available to us, to be within compliance, which is why I don't think we need to revisit it at this particular point. And in fact, the Menlo Country Club is in compliance with the conditional use permit. I don't think we have to say that because the Planning Commission already determined it. We upheld that decision and we determined it ourselves. So today we're just codifying it, if you will. But when you look at it, I think that, we have to be fair to all the parties that are here. I think that the Menlo Country Club could do more. I would like to see them do more. I think that they were willing to do that before. I hope they still are. But I don't see any alternative here except to do that. They did correct the electrical issue at those locations. The issue about a planning commissioner, I think it was Marilyn, who didn't know about something, that was still approved by the town. It was approved by the planning director. May have been by mistake. I won't argue that. I think that may have been a bad decision, but hey, when somebody comes to the town and says, I need this permit done, and you get it from the town, hey, I'm going to build my swimming pool because Jackie said it was okay. But, that's supposed to be good enough for me. You have to rely upon that. Maybe it should have gone to the Planning Commission, but it didn't. And I think that the applicant has every right to do it and to rely upon staff, especially the planning director, to when she, in this case, says that it's okay, that it is okay. So with all of that, very frustrated. I realize the frustration from Debbie and Kevin. I hear you. I heard it from Bonnie on the Zoom call. I'm frustrated too. I spent a lot of time on this as well. I live with noise. All of us live with noise, in one form or the other. I think that yours is excessive. I've been at the end of your street when there's events going on. I'm well aware of it. But I also think that the way the staff drafted this resolution, I support it. I think that they clearly addressed the electrical issue, the sound, which is the issue here. The only data that we have that Councilmember Flew had asked for, I actually asked for it as well at that night, shows that it's in compliance, that it's below 65 decibels, the lowest number that Kevin mentioned. I don't have any other data. And for that reason, reluctantly, but for that reason, I have to support the resolution. I apologize for my long-windedness as usual, but I have a lot of data to share, and I think it's important to do that.
Thank you. Can I ask a question of staff that came up? So when looking at the decibel level, do you look at that is, like with the limits of 65 for the average and 85 at the peak, is that supposed to be based on at the property line, or is that based at the event generally?
No, it's actually, the condition reads, it's at the property line. The condition reads that all amplified sound shall not exceed the 65, 85 for the 25 annual events at the fitness facilities measured at the nearest adjacent residential property line.
Thank you. Okay. And so I want to start by saying obviously I'm the newest person to this issue. I've done my best. I've read through the report twice. I've read other everything I could get my hands on about this to try to learn as much as I could to come in informed and to make a reasonable to vote on this as best as I could. And I want to start by saying I can empathize with you living with this, living with noise. When I was in law school, a bike shop opened below my apartment when I was in law school and studying all the time, and and they decided to start throwing parties in this bike shop, and they would stay up till 3 a.m. sometimes, and I'd call the police. I'd show up there. I was ready to. I didn't know what to do. I was studying for law exams. I was super stressed out. So I can. It's your home. If you can't have peace there, then where can you have peace? So this is a hard one for me because it's a pretty personal issue, I would say, about as personal as they come when it comes to your home noise. Looking at this, we have a very limited scope of what's in front of us, and that is the conditional use permit. And my understanding is that the primary issue is sound and noise. And is there a way to fix it? Is there a way we can do anything to minimize the noise? And if so, what? And so looking at everything that I've seen and, kind of as an outsider, somebody who isn't experienced with all of the background and everything else that's happened. And I want to say, sometimes we do get people will call and ask if I'll meet with them in person, if I'll have lunch with them. I have not turned down a single person. So to the extent you ever have an issue come up and you feel like you're not being heard, I don't know about everybody else, but I can tell you that I've gone up at homes. I've met with every person, whether in my district or not. So going forward, and that's I just have an open door policy. But looking at this from the outside, I think we have to look at the independent data from the sound monitoring. I think that's the only fair thing. If we're, and I wish that it could have been done at the property. I understand that it may not be accurate, that there may be amplified sound. And so, but I don't know what to do. Going back, we only have the data that's in front of us. And I wish that we could have, from your living room or from right in front of your house, wherever it's the highest amplified sound. But all we have is what's objective data and from an expert who was specifically hired at I believe a fairly high cost to go and do this. So we could, do what's fair. And I think we have to do what's fair for all parties involved. And also want to note, it sounds like the MCC made real efforts to try to resolve this. And I can appreciate that, maybe the solutions they talked about aren't going to be perfect, but I do think it's important to say that, I think they tried, and I don't think they have any, obligation necessarily to do those things that they were offering. But I personally would encourage both parties to please go back and try to talk more, because I'm a litigator. I can tell you, I've been doing this for a while, a good long time. Litigation gets ugly. Most everybody loses. That is generally the outcome of litigation. You can pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to lawyers, and even if you win, you end up with, sometimes you get what you want, or you lose and you end up spending all that money and getting nothing. So usually the best results are always when you can avoid it. And so I would encourage you to, if there's any interest on either or both sides, to do what you can to work together to try to see if there's any way to avoid potential litigation, because it can get very ugly, and it generally always does. And that's all I have.
So I certainly appreciate the sentiment expressed tonight, and I appreciate all the facts that have been shared. This is a unfortunate situation. And maybe the thing to start by saying is that two things can be true at the same time. You can hear sound. I don't think there's anybody up here that doubts you're hearing sound, and that it's a lot to handle, particularly because you share a property line and you're right on top of the issue. So I think we all acknowledge that. But that can also be true alongside of the findings that are in the packet tonight on the sounds and the fact that they are within the limits as determined. We did ask for independent noise monitoring, and I think it's important to also acknowledge that we did not do continuous, but it was targeted, and it was independently verified, and it was cost appropriate. Well, I mean, it says it's supposed to be listened to at the property line. So what I look at on this is what we have before us is what we have before us. It says you're in compliance, that they are in compliance. Additionally, the electrical was removed, which was another condition that we set that evening at council. And that was satisfied. And as we heard, it's passed inspection, final inspection. To address the process, maybe that's a piece that we're not hitting on enough. But I mean, the only thing I really take umbrage with is the idea that there was a total failure of process. I think, as the Mayor Pro Tem just pointed out with a very detailed review of the timeline, that there has been significant process, and I just feel like characterizing it otherwise would be inappropriate. I think there were clearly communication issues on staff's side. It sounds like we could have been more proactive on that for sure. We always encourage neighbors to talk to each other and have an open dialogue with a desire to find compromise and a reasonable path forward, but it sounds like we're at an impasse there as well. So there are a lot of unfortunate pieces to this. I do believe that council tried to directly encourage a mediation process. And I think we were hopeful that there would be more by this point than there really is. But what I find based on what we've got before us in terms of the removal of electric, the noise monitoring, I mean, I appreciate the perspectives, but I believe that we are in a position that I'm in a position to uphold the denial. And I think I can tell by the body language that there is a further deliberation. So Councilmember Wall, I'll hand it off to you.
I mean, there actually isn't I mean, I'm clearly a no, but I've said my piece. I mean, I think I agree there was a lot of process, but I think the notion that the process has worked in my mind, I think this was a real failure of process. In my mind, it's very simple. We denied the appeal with the clear addition of the operational conditions. And now we're coming back and saying, never mind, we're going to take those off. And that is a complete failure of due process here. And I just cannot, that was a key element of my vote to deny the appeal that evening. And so, and my position stands. I mean, we should have those additional operational conditions. Without those, then I wouldn't have voted that way.
Okay. But you agree that the electrical was, as a condition, was handled?
I don't think it's necessary to get into the
Well, I mean, you're saying
specifics.
that now we're being asked to just ignore the issues, but the issues that we just went through have been addressed in different ways per the staff report.
The issue is a process issue.
Okay.
Which is, we voted that night to deny the appeal with the inclusion of the operational conditions. Now we're coming back and removing those, and I don't think that's right.
Okay. Any further deliberations or comments by council?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Well, that we approve a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Woodside denying an appeal of the Planning Commission's approval of Resolution 2023-002, completing the required one-year review of the conditional use permit for the Menlo Country Club located at 2300 Woodside Road.
Second.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold,
Yes.
Councilmember Wall.
No.
Mayor Domkowski.
Yes.
Is there any direction we need to do at this point? That's it? Okay.
Sorry, there's not a better outcome for everybody. Yeah, we'll bring in Dick. Dick, you might be watching and you want to come in? Welcome back. Moving on to new business, item B, letters of support for community project funding applications, and I'll hand it off to you, Kevin.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor and Council. This is an item, Congressman Ricardo's office has reached out to his constituent communities and said that there is an opportunity again through the congressional appropriation process to submit applications for community project funding. I've reached out to his staff. In their transmittal, they outlined some areas of priority, one of which is wildfire planning, or wildfire resiliency. And we still have plenty of work that we can do. So I think they would be supportive of a project to build on the work that we are near or have completed on our FEMA grant for hazardous tree removal. So staff is recommending that we submit that. They've also asked, we've indicated that we could submit for 2, but we should indicate if there's a preference. And I think given that they've indicated they're focused on fire, we've met with the congressman, the mayor and I met with the congressman, indicating this is something that's important to us. I think that we should identify that as our priority item if they have to select only one. Last year, well, actually earlier this year, an application for Mountain Home Road Bridge rehabilitation was included, but ultimately Congress did not choose to do any appropriations or did not choose to do any funding for community projects under this program. So we are able to, and staff again suggests that we submit that as well as sort of a second priority. And in the past, we've had timelines that don't necessarily allow for council to formally endorse a letter. This time we had an extra couple of weeks. And so we took the opportunity to put it in an agenda and hopefully get full council support, which we would relay back to the congressman's office that these are important projects for the town based on that. That's all I've got. I can take any questions.
Okay, questions for staff? Nothing, anyone? Ben?
I do, yeah. So looking at the packet, it said the applications for community projects could fall into 3 buckets. So increase access to affordable housing, improve coastal resilience, and reduce the risk and severity of wildfires. And it looks like the 2 letters that we are submitting go to the reducing the risk and severity of wildfires bucket.
No, I left out some information in the staff report. There's actually a list of agencies and programs which would be, and it runs 3 pages. So one of those other programs would be Federal Highway Administration, which is what the bridge would fit most directly under, although having a functional bridge.
There's an argument for.
Absolutely there is. Absolutely there is. Those were the 3 things that the congressman identified as his priorities.
Oh,
when
gotcha.
he was-
Okay.
When he was looking at these. So both,
And I would imagine that making requests in line with his priorities would reduce, increase our likelihood of getting, okay. And so coastal resilience, that's not really a Woodside topic, but the first one, projects that increase access to affordable housing, I'm wondering what projects did we consider making a request for any projects that fit into that bucket?
There's nothing that really lends itself, or there's nothing that in the timeline that we've got to work with these that we came up with for that. No.
So nothing related to the housing element that we could scope a project around?
Not in the next 2 days. Yeah. And given the list of, again, the departments where they're eligible, I don't think there was a natural fit. I mean, at this point, for the housing element, it's getting those sites ready for development, and there isn't a need that we see that's going to be unmet.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for staff? Seeing none, any comments from public? Okay, we'll close public down and then deliberations. Anyone want to add anything into the mix?
For the application, a 5-0 vote supporting these applications and these letters communicating that support. That's what I'm looking for.
Do you want a force ranking, the letter?
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
Any other deliberations on this?
No, I think the priorities that they've laid out very clear and work very strongly in our favor to get funding. And we are probably uniquely suited to go after that kind of money that's very, very important to the state.
Great. You know, and then just based on the congressman's own transmission, expression of interest in fire mitigation, given that we did meet with him already one-on-one and talk about that and talk about our alignment with the Woodside Fire Protection District, there's great overlap there. And so if there's a forced ranking, I just think the higher priority choice would be one that is part of the storyline already, given the continuities of discussions we've had with him and his staff.
Sorry,
It's worth.
follow-up question. We can submit requests for 3 projects, right?
I don't think there was a limit.
Oh, okay, maybe I misheard. I thought you just said we could request 3, but maybe I misheard that.
No, we could. We've got 2 we're proposing to go with.
Is it the case that the more we request, like the less likely they'll grant all of them, or?
No, I don't think so. I can ask that question again, but no, I did not get that impression. I mean, I think that the way, so I say that they have a number of something like 15 that they, and this goes through a congressional appropriation process, which is its own mystery. But their staff said to me, if you're going to apply for more than one, give us a priority. So if we're in a position where they don't get enough, they're happy to carry both of ours. If they do, and they want to spread the wealth, they may be looking at our top choice. But I don't think the fact that we're applying for 2 makes us less eligible for 1.
Sorry, one more question. I'm struggling a little, maybe it's obvious, struggling a little bit with the fact that increasing access to affordable housing is something that we're having to do through our housing element. I get that we're just kind of entering into the realm of complying with our housing element. It feels potentially like a miss not to propose a project that fits into that bucket. So maybe my question is, have you guys asked his staff whether other municipalities are asking for funding for projects relating to their housing element compliance? Like maybe I get the oh, it's early, we didn't really know how to scope a project, but have we done what we can to extract information to see maybe we could put something together?
I can ask the question. The due date is Friday, so I don't know if he's got information on that. Sure. Or maybe somebody has in a previous cycle would have asked. I can certainly ask the question and see if there's something that is comparable for us.
Okay.
Or
And how would that work, right? So if you were to learn something tomorrow, like, oh, Menlo Park's asking for help to build infrastructure related to a town-owned property that has a lack of sewer access, just putting that out there as a possibility. What would you need from us tonight to authorize you and the mayor to draft a letter and make that happen?
I think, I asked for a motion, I think if you had included it and it got carried, that if we found something, and I'll work with the mayor, if we find something that we want to include, that we would just do that and submit it by Friday, and we do it under his signature
Okay.
as well.
So maybe just following up on that point, and also maybe dovetailing Councilmember Brown's comments earlier on consent agenda number 6. One of the great things about hazardous tree removal is whatever the grant is, we can fit within the grant, if you will, versus, oh, let's go do second egress at Ramundo and it's a $12 million project, or $3 million to draw sewer, or whatever. It's not, it's beyond the scope from an infrastructure point of view, potentially, to do things. I mean, we can look into it and evaluate, but I think that, to me, that's a critical issue. We're not looking to put in a bunch of, we're looking to take the earmark, if you will, and go to work with it as efficiently as we can.
I mean, that is one of the questions that is asked. It doesn't tell you how it's scored, but scalability is one of the questions. I mean, one of the questions is, if you don't get if you do not get fully funded, can you scale it down? Or would you do it, or could you do it anyway?
Right.
And that is true. The tree thing is very scalable. We get a dollar number, we go bid it, and we remove that number of trees. Everything else is, you get speculative about what the cost, when you talk about a sewer extension, what is that cost going to be? And you go into these, you're a little blind. I will also say that, going back to my start in 12, 13, these did not happen. This is a fairly recent phenomenon. I think it's a throwback to maybe an older age. But we've had, now this will be the third call for projects. So I think looking forward, there may be opportunities to do this for other things as well.
Right. Okay. So with that, what we're looking for is a vote of support for the letters on the table and anything else that people want to put in. But within, I think, just what we just heard sort of indicates that scope and affordability beyond structured projects is going to lower the probability of success, is what you basically said.
Oh, I'm thinking about execution, timing, and other components of that.
Okay.
This has always struck me as, usually when you do a grant proposal, you have fully scoped out, you have a full understanding of what you need. This always feels to me a little bit backwards, like, hey, you got something out there that we can kind of help you with. Which means
it's a high-class problem to have.
I'm not complaining, but it's just different.
Okay. Any further deliberation?
Then I'm supportive.
You had some additional thoughts? Want to try to?
I'm very supportive. I think you guys have scoped out 2 really great projects, and I certainly wouldn't want to do anything to reduce our likelihood of getting funding. I think that the writer, or whatever you want to call it, that I would propose is that staff have a conversation with the congressman staff to see if other municipalities have proposed any projects that would fall into the increased access to affordable housing bucket. And if there's anything that would read on Woodside, that we take the time to submit an additional letter so that we don't miss an opportunity to get funding in that.
Fair enough. Everybody's on board with that? Fair? Great. Motion? I'll let you motion with the red line, if you will.
Yes, if I could, yeah.
So I would move to approve the proposals in agenda item B with the addition that staff will have a conversation with Congressman Liccardo's staff to see if they are aware of any projects and in other municipalities that increase access to affordable housing that could be applicable to Woodside. And if that is the case, we will do the legwork, even on a short timeline, to submit a letter asking for funding for a similar project.
Second.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold, Councilmember Wall,
Yes.
Mayor Domkowski.
Yes, thank you. All, Melissa, volunteers?
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly to remind you that the registration for the 32nd May Day Fun Run and Walk is open. People can register online and they've been coming in, or residents can stop by Town Hall and register in person. And the sound immersion workshop is being held this Friday, April 25th from 7 to 8 p.m. in here. And there are still 10 spots available as of today. Thank you.
You, questions?
Current count on the, run? It's just approximate? Do you
I
know?
didn't look that up. I would say 25, I think, so far.
Oh, that's it. Oh, but it'll be.
But it will increase.
200 by the time.
Yes.
It always is, so.
We encourage everybody to register ahead of time instead of morning of. Makes it easier.
Training. I did train in softball too, yes.
Okay, any questions for Melissa? Seeing none, I think we'll jump right over to council communications. Anything?
Why are you looking at me?
Because you've
Yes,
always got a
yeah.
wonderful event that you're working hard on.
On the subject of what we just discussed, we were having a wildfire prevention workshop on May 22nd in this facility at 3 o'clock. And basically the Inside Fire is going to be talking to us about all the things that we need to do to harden our homes from fire, as well as how do we get ourselves plugged into the emergency alert network that needs to tell us when something's getting really, really serious. Excuse me. The other thing is I've observed, and most of us probably observed the last year or so, significantly increased use of electric bikes and scooters throughout town, throughout the community. And well, 2 months ago, I asked the sheriff department, what are the rules and regulations governing the use of these devices? And he came back with a list of basically one page. It says you can use them, almost anybody, any age, can use them in many, many locations. And when the Community Circulation Committee looked at it, said, whoa, wait a minute. What about horse trails? Are they permitted on horse trails? Are they permitted on bike paths where horses go, for example? What are the other issues that we see day to day? And the answer is, we need some regulations. Sheriff Department said we are free as a community to, excuse me, to formulate our own local regulations. And so I've asked the committee to come forward with some recommendations to the council about what we can and cannot do to further regulate the use of electric bikes and scooters in the town.
That's fantastic. And you're in luck. Councilmember Wall, would you like to respond to Councilmember Brown and his interest in e-bikes?
So very timely topic because it's actually a topic that the mayor and I have had a couple conversations on. And you're totally right. I think there definitely has been an increase in e-bike usage in the town. I personally have witnessed some really concerning instances of teenagers riding e-bikes in an unsafe way. And I have a lot of questions. What is the state of the law? How can it be regulated? If it can't be regulated, is there something more the town could do in terms of signage or whatever the case may be? So I think Circulation Committee recommendations on that front would be very helpful. And so I think, I believe this is all going to culminate in a study session that we're planning for sometime in June. I think specific date TBD. So very much welcome your thought partnership on how we want to frame that study session. I think the more legwork we do before we go into that session to kind of formulate what our specific questions are, who are the right stakeholders to invite. I 100% agree. I think the sheriff is a key stakeholder, as is the Circulation Committee. I think the school is another key stakeholder because a lot of the A lot of students are riding bikes and e-bikes to school. In fact, the school is investing in a new bike shelter to accommodate bikes and e-bikes because they've been seeing kids ride these bikes on campus, which they want to, well, it is against school rules. And so to try to stop that, they're going to ask to park their bikes in this new bike structure. So anyway, long-winded way of saying it's a great topic. It's something that we've been chatting about, study session plan for this summer. And please, let's ask the questions and do the legwork in advance so we can have a productive study session.
Thank you. Any other council communications?
I have one, the emergency services, we had a meeting, the Joint Powers Group, whatever it's called. And there's a significant problem brewing. We're going to be okay for at least a year, but the feds have withdrawn a lot of the grants, as you might suspect, from the current administration, which has, and a lot of what we do is about a fourth of the budget is based on grants. And this is the group that is the mutual aid for fire prevention, and all the fire departments. It's pretty much run by the county fire group, and but they also do bomb squad and hazmat and all those other kind of special things. But I spoke with the director, Dr. Shruti, about this particular issue, and we have one of the largest areas in Woodside and also one of the highest risk areas, and are probably most affected by fire and mutual aid and coordination of the fire departments. And yet we pay almost the least amount because it's based on a combination of population and I forgot something else. It's two separate things. I just don't remember, but we pay $30,000 or $40,000 a year, and like Redwood City pays $300,000 or something. I mean, which you would expect. But anyway, I actually brought up offline with the director that we may need to revisit that it's still not going to be a big number for us. It's kind of a rounding error on our budget, even with a small budget. But I think that we're at high risk for this. We take real advantage of the mutual aid issue, and fire is a big issue for us, as we've heard tonight, and we hear a lot. And I'm going to meet with her offline and see if we can come up with something that it would take a redoing of the articles of, not articles of incorporation, but the charter that we just recently approved. It would mean changing that, but there may not be an alternative based upon the funding method, because we're really going to run out of gas probably next year. So I just wanted to bring it to the council's attention. It's something we may be revisiting in the next 3 to 6 months.
Really appreciate that. And that also goes back to, again, Councilmember Brown and all the decisions we have to make. And again, not to deliberate on anything, but the reality is, as funding dries up, the state has to move in, the county has to move in, more people start knocking on local doors. We're going to start seeing that some of this stuff is teed up to start coming on some of our agendas in the next couple of months. So again, something like this, it's important that whenever something's being considered that we make sure a priority like this can be funded, despite so many people coming with open hands looking for additional capital from us. With that, we have one last communication section, and Mr. Middleman, I've seen you there. I don't know if you have something to say or you're just observing tonight, but we have one last thing before the gavel comes down, if you have anything you want to add. Perfect way to end, and with that, at 9:14, meeting adjourned.